Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, let's thank to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who's been given us some mercies and blessing until we can attend in this class today without any trouble and obstacle. And secondly, my salawat and salam always be given to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who had guided us from the darkness to the lightness, from the stupidly era to the cleverly era, namely Islam religion, the true religion in this world and hereafter. And well, we are from group 5, want to present the result of our group's work in a community speech. But before that, introduce me on behalf of Asmati as moderator today. And there are 7 members of our group, namely Asmaul Husna, Alvira, Marinda, Nur Isa Hasriani, Nur Hidayah, Wirna, and the last me. And, and next, I give time for the first speaker for explain about our material, and time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Alvera. Well, I will explain about speech community. This material is divided into 3 materials. The first is the definition of the community. The second is the intersecting community. And the last is networks and repertoires. Next, I will explain what is the definition of a speech of community. For general linguistics, a speech community is all the people who speak a single language and so share notions of what is the same or different in phonology of grammar. This would include any group of people, wherever they might be, and however remote might be the possibility of their ever waiting or being able to communicate with each other using the same language. Furthermore, according to Lyons 1970, defines community speech as everyone who uses a particular language or dialect. This definition is rather simple and general with a focus on the given language or dialect.
Well, my name is Nur Hidayah. I want to continue definition of speech community. For Fishman, 1971, a speech community is a subtype of community, all of whose members share at least a single speech variety and the norms for its appropriate use. And Labov, 1972, defined it as participation in a set of shared norms that those norms may be observed in 4 types of evaluative behavior, and by the uniformity of abstract patterns of variation which are invariant in respect to particular levels of usage. He proposed the first definition of speech community, and his perspective was most influential in that if it emphasized on linguistic production, social perception, and evaluation. It gave an insight to the essence of this term and has been followed by all the subsequent scholars.
I am Asmaul Husna. I will continue to explain about the definition of speech community according to Gompers and Himes. So the first, Gumper's 1968 held that it was any human aggregate characterized by regular and frequent interaction by means of a shared body of verbal signs and set off from similar aggregates by significant differences in language usage. Later, he revised it as a social group, which may be either monolingual or multilingual, held together by frequency of social interaction and set off from the surrounding areas by weaknesses in the lines of communication. In 1971, he focused on the aspect of interaction and multilingual, which is very important feature of the speech community. And for Himes in 1974, however, the speech community is not a naive attempt to use language to compass a social unit, but rather an object defined for purposes of linguistic inquiry, not to be confused with the attributes of the counterpart of that object in social life. It postulates the unit of descriptions as a social rather than linguistic entity. Then, Himes in 1986 proposes to divide the speech community into individual communities and groups, which is considered a descriptive theory including two aspects: a community that share rules for the conduct and interpretation of speech, and rules for the interpretation of at least one linguistic variety.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Isa Hasriani. I will continue the material. Definition of speech community. According to Kurzweil, 1994, believed it referred to linguistic similarities among the various codes in use, and to agreement on the social meaning of various linguistic parameters, including sociolinguistic variables, code switching, and contextualization cues. Such parameters can only be fully understood by members of the same speech community, according Liu Mingzheng, 2012. He took the perception and motivation of the individual speaker as primary. These definitions reflect different concerns of each researcher, but it turns out that most linguists emphasize that the shared rules of language use and the common communication among the members in a speech community. And it's also the basic concept in the study of the speech community. Okay, next, intersecting communities. Intersecting communities, indicating the speaker of place to use expressions, indicates that there is some idea of how a typical person from each place speaks. To be a member of a particular speech community, somewhat loosely defined. For example, New York speech, London speech, South African speech. Each person speaks their own typical way according to its place of origin or specific speech community. Rosen claims that cities cannot be thought of as a linguist patchwork maps ghetto because the first, languages and dialects have no simple geographical distribution, and the second, because interaction between them blurs whatever boundaries might be drawn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for moderator. Uh, introduce myself. My name is Wirna. Uh, the material interesting communities. Each person speaker their own typical way according to its place of origin or specific speech community. Rosen claims that cities cannot be thought of as a linguistic patchwork maps given because one language and dialect have no simple geographical distribution, and two, because interaction between them blurs whatever boundaries may be drawn. A network and reporters. A network and reporters is so that a person can be part of various speech communities. Some the interest and some that do not. Certain individual might be in one or more group but not others. Jadi yang dengan interesting communities ini itu adalah komunitas atau for example suatu daerah di dalam terdapat komunitas masyarakat, dan di dalam komunitas masyarakat itu otomatis mereka punya gaya bahasa sendiri dalam berkomunikasi. Jadi for example Mandar, mereka juga pasti punya ciri khas bahasa sendiri dalam komunitasnya sebagai masyarakat untuk berkomunikasi sehari-hari. Oke, I think enough. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Marinda, student number 8012034. Well, I want to continue the material. Networks and reporters. A competent speaker is able to free his or her language by applying different register and styles. Open network, a network which provides open access to its users. Information is often new and of importance, a serious blogger and visitor of blog. Cross-sec network mostly store this information that flows in those networks tends to be redundant and ineff- inefficient. For example, Facebook. Networks and reporters, speech reporters, verbal reporters, the totality of linguistics from employed in a socially, socially significant interaction, vocabulary, grammar. Speech repertoires, linguistic varieties used by a speech community. Thank you.
So the conclusion from our material are members of the community speak more often with each other than they do with members outside the community. This pattern of behavior is known as communicative isolation. Communicative isolation is increased by social, cultural, economic, and geographical factors. Consequently, over time, the speech community develops characteristics of language and language use that are different from those of another community. And maybe that's all for discussion today. Hopefully, from this discussion, friends, there is a little knowledge they can be understood from our discussion today. Sorry for the wrong words and less than our delivery. We finally and say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.